you all. Thank you so much just for the warm welcome. It's definitely, it feels good. And so thank you for that. So there we go, my slide. Decision making and selling with logic to make lots of money. Sound good? Yeah. All right. So this sounds like a boring topic, I think. But what I'm going to share with you, I think, are some of the frameworks that have made me the most money in my life. And I think it's because it's allowed me to make decisions for myself that have made me lots of money. And it's really shifting from a place of lack of power to a place of power. And so right now, if I were to say, like, who here wants to be powerful? Like, just you can answer in your mind. If there's like a little thing inside of me that's like, that feels weird to say, right? Then I would push back on that because fundamentally, like, power is neutral, right? You can build hospitals with it, you can destroy hospitals with it, but power is just energy, right? And so I define power as the ability to influence people or events. That's all it is. And so the more you can influence people or events, the more power you have. And so if you believe you have good intentions or you want to impact the world, then you should, in my opinion, want to be as powerful as humanly possible. And I think the element or the secret to really good sales is actually trying to transfer that power into the person you're talking to. Because most of us probably know you've been in a sales conversation of some sort, and the person, what do they not want to do? Decide. And when you have somebody who doesn't want to decide, it's because they are weak and they are powerless. Or at least they feel that way. And so it's our jobs as coaches and salespeople to give them that power and at least remove the distortions that are blocking their path. Does that make sense? And if it doesn't, that's why I have a presentation. Okay, so here's my promise. This presentation will be the best presentation on sales you've ever heard, the worst presentation on sales you've ever heard, or somewhere in between. All right? Absolutely promise. I'll bet my reputation on it, okay? And Charlie Munger is one of my big heroes. We have a high moral responsibility to be rational. And I tend to have a different style of selling in general. And I'm just, I've gotten like a lot of praise and accolades around teaching sales, etc. And I tend to reject a lot of the kind of emotional selling tactics. Not to say that I don't think people make emotional decisions, but I actually think that people start with people want to buy. They want the problem to be solved. And if we can just help them justify the decision, they'll move forward. And I think that when you help people make logical decisions to help themselves, after the emotions wear off, which they all do, they're then stuck with the reality of, oh shit, I just bought this thing. And if there was a logical reason for them to do it, they're way less likely to A, back out, or B, disengage throughout the thing, right? How many people have sold someone something and then they just completely ghost? And you're like, you paid me, what is wrong with you? They didn't have a logical reason, or at least the distortion that they thought, the distortion that existed didn't get solved. And so if you really want to help people, you have to help them confront these demons, all right? So what does being rational logical have to do with selling, right? You've got logical buyers, emotional buyers. People tend to be on this spectrum here, right? And so emotionally, people want to believe you, they want to buy, you just have to help their logical brains justify the decision. All right, so there's some pretty slides for what I just said. All right, so who here identifies as an emotional buyer? Can I just get hands? I'm gonna do a lot of hand raising, so just FYI. Okay. Who here identifies more with being a logical buyer? Okay, cool. Who's in between? I was about to make like a really PC not joke, and I'm just gonna move on. Okay, so, great. You'll love this then. So if you're any of those three categories, you'll love the presentation. All right, so before we get started, a few beliefs about selling that have served me well. I'm just gonna riff on these really quick, and then we're gonna get into the meat, okay? So, number one, people want to believe you, they want to buy, you have to help them justify the decision. Two, selling happens before you ask, closing happens after you ask for the sale. So everything from the time they see the first thing that they've ever seen from you of all time until the day you ask for the sale is all selling. The moment you've made your offer to them, you're closing. It's very important to delineate that because the last piece of that is all I'm going to be talking about today, is how to close. It's easy to handle obstacles, it's easier to handle obstacles than it is objections. Obstacles happen before you ask, objections happen after. And I'll go deep on this. That being said, expect and plan for no. It is not failure, it is expected. So whenever you have someone say no to you in the sale, that's the job. No is the job. That is where closing starts. So if you're like, oh, as soon as someone says no, I back off, you're like, why are you here? If they were automatically going to say yes, you're not necessary. If they already had made up their mind about this and didn't have any distortions about reality, you wouldn't be required. They would have already solved the problem. So if you want to help them, then you have to help them confront these demons, these things that are distorting how they see the world. And this is a good one that I like training sales teams with, which is, if you didn't get a gasp from the price tag, you didn't go high enough. Plan for no. Shoot for the gasp. Start preparing for the negative things that you're afraid of, and all of a sudden, when it happens, you're like, great, I trained for this. This is where the job starts. This is where closing begins. Selling properly is the first step to becoming a coach. Your first impression and the expectations you set dictate the relationship. So if some of you guys have terrible clients or it's very uneven, some people are great, some people are shitty, it's because you're not good at setting expectations. And that starts with the first conversation. It's arguably the most powerful conversation you're gonna have in the entire relationship with a client, is the first one. Because it sets the frame for everything else. Just like, who here has experienced on more than 100 sales calls of some sort? Okay, how important are the first 3 minutes? It's everything. You set the frame. Either you've already lost and you're just trying to dig it all back the whole time, you probably don't close, or the whole time, you're the expert, you're the authority, and it becomes very easy to sell, right? But you have to hold the frame. The frame of the entire relationship is set in that first conversation. Selling is helping prospects make decisions to help themselves, all right? I think if you can shift this, and this is probably like my favorite way of describing sales to people, it's like, I just need to help this person make a decision to help themselves. Like, what we're really becoming are decision-making support experts. Like, okay, do you want this thing? Great. Why aren't you gonna do it? This is a decision. Let's walk through it together, right? And this is a conviction thing. Keep the prospect, not the sale, as the priority. If you prioritize the human rather than the conversion, you'll make more money. Because people are exceptionally good at sniffing out intention. Like, we've got millions of years of evolution of like, is this person gonna trick me and kill me in the woods so they grab my food? Like, we've got lots of animal brain behind to understand if someone's trying to fuck us. I love the term in sales, commission breath. You don't want that. And the thing is I love if you have like something above your laptop or wherever you take calls that just says like human first, or like seek to understand. Little phrases like that just remind you right before you get on the call. It takes like 2 seconds. Just be like, human first. I'm gonna try and help this person. It just makes the conversation go the right way because you ask the right questions from the right tone. Because you actually are trying to care for the person. If they object, seek to understand, not argue to be right. Has everyone heard that saying? I think Dale Carnegie was like, no one wins an argument. You don't win an argument. Even if you're right, you don't win. So the whole goal, so some people are like, I got her on the zinger. It's like, yeah, but she didn't buy. Right? And so the goal isn't to be right, it's to understand why they have that view of the world. And they have that view of the world because it's been reinforced through multiple experiences. We just have to unpack the experiences and then pull out, hey, when you hired that salesperson, I'm switching gears in terms of B2B, it's the same mindset. When you hired that salesperson and it didn't work out, it wasn't that all salespeople are bad, or that it's impossible to find salespeople. You learned the wrong lesson from this experience. Does that make sense? All we're doing is trying to unpack what is the experience that you took the wrong lesson from and extrapolated it to the rest of your life. So that's all most of us do. The reason most people can't be successful is because we learned lots of lessons that were wrong from experiences that we had as kids or earlier on in our lives, and then we say, this is how it always is. And that's what makes life hard, because we're wrong. We see the world the wrong way, we are distorted. Maintain childlike curiosity at all times. So pretend you're a 4-year-old, and someone's like, I need to think about it. You're like, why? You're not attacking, you're like, I just want to know. Like, I don't think my husband's gonna want to let me do that. Huh, why wouldn't he want you to be skinny? That doesn't make sense, right? But like, it's a frame. But like, if you're like, that's ridiculous, of course he wants you to be, it's like, whoa, it's like we're fighting. It's like, no, curiosity. I got nowhere to be. I'm here to serve you. Like, why? Huh? What experience did you have in the past that you're extrapolating to this moment that's wrong. Closing is a dance, not a fight. It's seduction, not rape. Aggressive. Yeah. Got some people to wake up. Selling is a transference of belief over a bridge of trust. Therefore, you must have the belief in order to transfer it. Most of you guys, if we're being real, don't actually believe in what you sell. And I think that's actually a good thing, because if you're struggling with sales, then it means you're actually ethical. You don't believe in your thing, that's why you have trouble selling. Because you don't believe in it. And so you should fix that. Because let's paint the opposite scenario. Has anyone ever seen someone like make a huge religious belief change in their lives? Anyone? And you meet them and they're like on fire with whatever the thing is that they're believing in. There's a small part of you that's like, fuck, maybe they're right. Right? And the thing is that the person who has the strongest conviction ultimately wins. Always. And so at some point, like, you have to sell them on your conviction in them more than their doubt in them. And you can't go toe-to-toe there unless you've got backup. And to me, that backup is depth of how much you believe. And so a big thing is people are like, have conviction. But I don't think that language is correct. It's not, do you have conviction? Do you have conviction? Do you not have conviction? Do you believe or do you not believe? It's how much do you believe? How deep do you believe? And how much you're gonna help this person? Because if you truly, like, I'll give you an example. Let's say I could put you in a time machine and you could talk to yourself 10 years ago and you could tell them to make one investment decision, okay? So some of you guys probably know something that went up like 10,000x in the last 10 years. You could pick whatever it is in your head. If you went back in time and you got to talk to that person that's you, but you didn't get to look like you, you're just a random person. I put you in some other version, some totally different body, and you have to go up to them on the street, and you've got one shot at having that conversation. How fucking convicted would you be to be like, dude, just put all of the money in this. I love you. Let me explain what's gonna happen. Like, this is how it's, like, see the body language, see how I'm talking? You talk that way because you're convicted. And you really wanna help younger you. And the closer you can get to that frame mentally, when you get into the conversation, the more it doesn't feel like you're arguing with them. It's you're like, I'm deeply caring for you because I believe I can help you. One of the best sales guys we have at Gym Launch, I've seen a lot of his calls, and it's so funny. I've seen him like on the 7th no with a gym owner, and he's like, I take his glasses off and rub his eyes, and he's like, I'm not giving up on you, man. He's like, you are poor, and you own a gym. The exact type of gym that we've helped 5,000 other fucking gyms turn around. And you don't have money because you don't know how to run your gym. We will help you have money for running your gym. The reason you are afraid is because you've failed before, and I get that. But how do you think you're gonna get out of that? Right? He's like, I'm not giving up on you. And I think if you have that frame, people can feel that it's from genuine care, not from the desire to get the commission. Does that make sense? Okay, I'll speed through these. You can only build trust if you genuinely want to help. Belief and trust are continuums, not binaries. Treat them accordingly. It's not do they trust you or not, it's how much do they trust you. It's the reason referrals are so strong. If you say, hey, you should try these shoes out, because they're really, really high fashion. Right? Then people will be like, wow, I trust you. They have to trust me a lot. But some people will trust you, right? Closers ask hard questions because they genuinely care. Sometimes, like one of the best closers I hired at one of my gyms way back in the day was actually an ex-therapist. Because he was just told, he's like, I think you just really doubt yourself. And you just be like, why do you think that is? These women just break down, you know what I mean? My mother never, he's like, man, it's $5.99, you can start on Monday. The person who cares the most about the prospect wins the deal. This is fucking big. If you can care more about them than they care about them, you'll win every deal. If you genuinely believe what you have will help them. If you do genuinely care more about them than they care about them, and you don't believe what you have will help them, you won't sell shit. Because you shouldn't, because you don't believe it. just record all your sales. That's all I'm gonna say. I did like 4,000 sales, didn't record any of them, and it like really kills me to this day. So please don't do that. And if you have a sales team, have them record their sales because it's the only way you have game tape reviews so you can get better. The goal of closing is to get someone to decide, not to buy. If you can shift this in you and your salespeople, you will have people who are divorced from the outcome. Because then when someone doesn't buy, it doesn't crush them. Because the goal wasn't to get them to buy. The goal is to have an empowered individual make a decision to help themselves or not. Ideally to help themselves in whatever direction they decide to go. Get that shift? Power is the ability to direct or influence people. If you want to be powerful, you have to learn this skill. And that's what we're going to talk about, okay? So, when does selling happen? When you engage the lead, you qualify the lead, you solicit the sale, you close the sale? The whole time, right? And so what are we going to talk about today? Just that part. Everything you have to do after asking for the sale. Why do I think this is so important? Here's an insane stat. The top 5 red zone offenses over the last 10 years have made the playoffs 90% of the time. As in, forget their defenses, forget their special teams, forget every other metric you have in their teams. If you're top 5 in the red zone, when the deal's on the line, 90% go to the playoffs. It's a very high leverage skill. Has anyone here ever hired an exceptional salesperson and then their business took off? 4 people, fantastic. So, I should probably ask, like, who here has hired exceptional salespeople? But I will tell you, once you have the skill, you'll be able to recognize it in other people. If you've never been able to hire a really good salesperson, it's because you're not one. If you don't have the perspective in which to make the judgment, is this person good or not? You have no idea because you don't have any nuance and skill. It's like, this is how your clients probably feel when they're like, well, should I do keto or intermittent fasting? Or I heard calories are fake, you know? And they're like, well, that's your opinion, you know what I mean? Like, this guy said bacon's good for me, right? Or whatever it is. And so the thing is they have no perspective from which to make a judgment, which is why they're incapable of making an informed decision because they're not informed. And so you're incapable of making an informed decision about how to hire a good salesperson because you're not one. So you're guessing. And so if you got one, you got lucky. And so what I want to do today is help you not be lucky and be good for sure. Cool? Okay. So, big picture. 10% of people are never going to buy. Don't dwell on it. The other 10% of people are laid down and already decided to buy before they start talking to you. So just don't fuck it up. All right? 80% of people need help deciding. And this is why we train. So after this presentation, here's my goal. That you have at least one more bullet, one more play in your arsenal to close, and maybe one more deal a month. If I can do that, I paid for your weekend. Cool? All right. There you go. And so here's one of my favorite sayings. You're only one decision away from changing your life forever. I can get in my car, drive drunk, kill somebody, get a girl pregnant, or be the girl who got pregnant, right? On the flip side. One decision, change your life forever. And I think that that's actually kind of cool. Because it means that like life at any moment, like we can make massive changes. It also means we can have that power to help our customers make the same thing. So, but instead of changing our lives, which is what we can do with this power, we blame. Think give power to. Sources outside of our control. This is why the underlying theme of this whole presentation is power. And this is why so many people are weak and powerless. So, we're going to do a fun activity today. 1, help you make decisions to help yourself with whatever decisions you're facing. 2, use these frameworks to help prospects help themselves. And 3, become more powerful. Cool? Yeah. All right. But rather than keeping a hypothetical, I need you to visualize a decision that you need to make, whatever it is. All right. Think about one. Write it down if you can. Just like think about a decision that you need to make. Anything you've been confronted with. Okay. Here's why. If you actually think through it, you're more likely to remember this. Otherwise, this is just time you're going to burn on your life candlestick. Okay. So this is Confucius. I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand. And so sure, I'm going to show you this thing, you're going to hear it, you're going to see it, but if you do it, you'll internalize it. And this will be a big theme of this, is that in a second I'll tell you to put your phones away. Reason is there's going to be recordings and all that stuff, but if you can actually do it, 1, the likelihood that you come back and watch recordings is really small, let's be real. If you do it, you have a way higher likelihood of actually getting value from this, okay? So, like I said, who's got a big decision to make in the last 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours? Anyone? Cool? All right. So we're going to use this. Who thinks the decision can change life for the better? Whatever the decision is. Hopefully, whatever decision you're looking at could. Good. If it couldn't, then fucking don't do it. That's the end of the presentation. Okay. So I want to show you, as though you were a prospect, how to think through a decision, okay? And how you can help other people by using these frameworks. So you got what I want, what I don't want. Cool. So here's the goal translator. If you decide to do it, that you feel more certain about the decision. If your prospect decides to do it, they feel certain. If they decide not to do it, you also have to feel certain about it, right? And what you want to avoid is the undecided, the miserable maybe. The reason is that as soon as you leave in a maybe, right, or can't make a decision, you're actively giving your power to circumstance. You're just choosing to be a weak bitch about life. Real talk. How many of you just like, I'm gonna wait, I'll confront that decision, you wait, until eventually it just gets decided for you. And then you're like, okay. You could have just made the decision. And then, like one of my favorite quotes is that the heaviest thing in the world isn't iron or gold, but it's an unmade decision. Anybody have relationships in their life that are unmade decisions? People you have in your life? Employees that you have in your life? Just you carry them around like in your back pocket. You're like talking to people, you're still thinking about this, your phone buzzes, you see the person, and fuck. Oh, I'll let life make that decision for me. So that's the goal, is to not have that happen. Quick disclaimer, because what I'm going to show you is really powerful. Helping someone make a decision to help themselves does not mean buying from you. 2, it means keeping them and their goals at the center of the decision. Because if you have this power, which I'm going to show you, you're going to be able to get people to make decisions. Fucking promise you. Make sure that they're the focus of it. And you should be happy if someone makes a decision for themselves, independent of whether they choose to work with you or not. You should be stoked. Like, I'm fucking happy for you, actually. Whatever it is. Even if you just broke up with me. If you made the decision, you fucking own it, and you believe it, I'm happy for you. I'll go pick up my heart later. Most importantly, you understand how to make high-stakes decisions and how to help your prospects do the same in order to best serve them. All right? So, this leads me to a fun delineation between obstacles and objections. I told you I'd circle back to this. Here's what it is. You've heard these terms before? Cool. Who knows the difference? I gave you a little sneak peek of them earlier. All right, obstacles. A thing that blocks one's way or progress and prevents or whatever. When you disagree with something the prospect says. That's what it means in sales. When you disagree with them, they say something, and you're like, I disagree with you. So here's an example. Someone walks in the gym, or someone hops on the call, and they're like, so you're like, why'd you hop on the call today? They're like, I just wanted to find out more information about the program. Boom! First 5 seconds, they're already giving you obstacles. You didn't fucking hop on the call to get more information. You hopped on because you're fat. But I gotta get them to say it. Right? I'd have people walk in the gym and be like, I was like, what are you doing? Like, I just want to get some more information. I was like, so you just hop around getting information all day? I was like, you're trying to solve a problem. And then they'd be like, well, I'm trying to solve a problem. I'm like, well, what's the problem? Like, I can't fit in my jeans anymore. I'm like, all right. Because I was like, I don't think information's going to help you. Like, no. All right. But the thing is, and this is real for the experienced salespeople in the room. If you didn't confront that right there, it would have blown up on you in the sale, in the close. So these are like little landmines that an experienced salesperson can hear, and they're like, ooh, I gotta diffuse this before I tell them about the money later. Otherwise, they're just gonna blow it up in my face. And so the more experience you get, the more you start to recognize these patterns that people will drop. They'll just be like, ooh, I'm gonna leave that there for later so that I can pull that in the close. Like 7 minutes in, they're like, yeah, my husband and I always make our decisions together, no matter what. And you're like, all right, we're 7 minutes in. This is how it's gonna go. All right. Sounds good. So give me an example of a decision you have made on your own. They're like, none. And you're like, all right, you probably should get your husband here. They're like, I made decisions on my own. I'm like, okay, what scope decisions? Like, where does your purview end? Where does your permission to be human like stop? And then they're like, oh, well, I can make decisions. Okay, to be clear then, like, is 10 years from now, if like you were overweight, would you blame your husband? Because he makes all decisions for you. I feel like that's not fair to him. Ooh, tone shift. 7 minutes in. I haven't talked about money yet. I'm talking to a person that I want to help. If she keeps putting all of her blame on her spouse, I'm never going to help her. Doesn't even matter what the program is. Does that make sense? Real shit. This is the stuff that you use to help people make decisions. Objections. Expression or feeling, is this getting a little, dig it louder? Okay. Expression or feeling of disapproval or opposition, a reason for disagreeing. This is when they disagree with you. You want to have as few of these and as many of the obstacles. You want to blow as many of the landmines as you can before you talk about money. Because it's much easier to confront something before you talk about money than after. So that's what you gotta have your lenses on. Someone says the husband thing, you're like, I don't want to confront it. You gotta confront it. You can't sidestep it. You gotta confront it head on. The best time to do it is before you talk about money. I don't want to buy right now. That's an example. Totally reasonable. What are the main criteria you're thinking through? They were like, shit, I thought that was going to be how I got out of this. I got to think about it. Cool, what are you thinking about? Ah, fuck, I'm still here. He's still here too. Darn. I have to answer this question. Yes, because I want to help you out. Because if you're actually going to think through it, then let's make sure you're thinking through it smart. Okay, so learning how to talk through these high-stake decisions with yourself or others is the purpose of the presentation. And as a result, you and your prospects will become more powerful. So before I dive into each of these arguments, the person must really want the goal and believe that one, the product will get them to their goal the way they want to go there. This is big. Like if someone doesn't want to lose weight and you haven't established that early, it doesn't matter what you say. They're like, I was actually here because I want community. It's like, well, fuck. Should have known that earlier. Make it a lot easier to talk to them, right? So they have to want the thing. And they have to want it the way you're going to deliver it. 2, you know that you and others support them in this decision. And 3, that it will work for them and not just everyone else. If you have these 3 boxes checked, now you can close 100% of people if you have these boxes checked with what I'm going to show you. And the way you do that is providing so much proof that it would be unreasonable that they don't believe. Because if someone says, I just don't think it's going to work for me, and you say, that's totally reasonable. I would probably feel the same way if I were you and had your experiences. So the question is, at what point do you feel like it'd be reasonable to believe that something could work for you? You should ask the question. You're like, would it be like 5 other people have done it? 10, 50, 100, 1,000? Well, here's 1,000. Tell me when it stops rolling. When is it reasonable? So would it be fair to say that it's more reasonable not to believe than to believe? Okay. I get that you're afraid, but it doesn't mean that this doesn't make sense. Right? Diffuse the situation and move forward. Because otherwise, if they're unsure of that thing, they'll object to something else in the close. They'll just make something, okay? Which is why you should expect no at first. So, now to the main course. That was the appetizer. Everybody good with the appetizer? All right. That was the steak tartare and hamachi crudo. You know what I mean? Mozzarella sticks. There we go. So Richard Feynman, also a big hero of mine, he said, understand, don't memorize, learn principles, not formulas. I don't want you to memorize the words I'm saying. I want you to understand how it works. Because if you understand the argument behind it, then you'll be able to recreate it on demand. Okay? That's an important point here. The best closer's like, sure, like you start, because if you say it enough times, you start to memorize the closes, but I think it comes more from a place of understanding than it is from like, I have to memorize this thing. Okay? So yeah, put the cameras away, be present, and I think we'll all make more money. All right, so there's 3 sources that we cast our power to. So we're, like, if you can write something down, write down, power follows the finger of blame. Where blame goes, power follows. It goes for life. If you blame your parents, it means you're giving them the power of your life. You blame your spouse, give them the power of your life. You blame your upbringing, you blame the zip code you were in, you blame your race, you blame your gender, you blame whatever. That's where the power goes. Anybody heard of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT? This guy, Dr. Albert Ellis, is the father of it. Had a lot of therapy interviews. And after 30, 40, 50 years of doing these interviews, he was like, there's 11 distortions of reality that people suffer from that make them unhappy. And then he revised it after more interviews. And he was like, there's 9. Revised it after more, he's like, there's 7. And then finally, at the end of his career, he's like, there's only 3. And they just so happen to be the same things that people blame for why they're not successful. These are the things that you have to learn how to overcome in sales. The first thing that people do is they cast their power to blame circumstances. I must get what I want, and I must not get what I don't want, and if I don't get what I want, I can't stand it. That's when they blame their circumstances. Second, they blame other people. Other people must treat me fairly and kindly, and if they don't, they are no good, and they deserve to be condemned and punished. 3, self. I must do well, or else I am no good. Anyone ever heard these thoughts to themselves? Right? It's the source of unhappiness. Legit. And so I actually organize these kind of like an onion. So this is the onion of blame. So as these obstacles present themselves, think about it from the outside in. The first and easiest thing that people will blame is circumstances. So when you hear a money objection, you hear a time objection, you hear a I'm not sure if this is the right program for me objection, those are surface level. You're 2 degrees away from an actual decision maker. They're blaming outside shit. Then after you peel that, they're like, okay, but my kids, my spouse, my dog, my grandmother, my monkeys, my whatever, my virtual pets, I have to check with them before I make any decisions. They have the power over my life. Weird when you phrase it that way, right? Yeah, my kids have power over my life. Okay. My employees have power over my life. Weird. Odd. Who's paying who? And then finally, at the bottom, is self. And that's when someone's like, let me think about it. When you hear that, you're actually you're at the deepest layer. You're actually talking to somebody who's empowered to make a decision and isn't blaming circumstances. You should be stoked. You're like, I only have one thing left to overcome. Just helping you confront this decision. When you hear circumstance stuff, you're like, okay, I got 2 layers to go. And so, whenever you hear these obstacles, don't freak out. You just gotta peel the onion. And that's what we train for no. No is what we train for. Does that make sense? Has anyone here thought about training for sales? The way you train for fitness? Well, if you did, you'd make more money. So even though these are the things that distort people's realities, they manifest in 5 different ways. All right, so I want to equip you to deal with them. So here are the 5 most common excuses. And they fall into this, right? You got time, value, fit. Those are all circumstantial. And there's other things that will come up. These are kind of the big buckets. Others, and the big point underneath of that is they're saying, I don't have the authority to make decisions about myself. How fucked up is that? And 3 is self. You know what? I have the power, and there's nothing stopping me, but I'm going to avoid this decision because I don't want to feel bad about myself. Surface level, core. So we're going to start from the outside of the onion and work our way through. So, here's how they sound. Not a good time right now, I can't afford it, not sure if it's for me, I have to talk to my partner, spouse, dog, avoidance, anything. Okay? Circumstances, others, self. Quick test, physically in the room today? All right. So, raise your hand if you've ever thought or had a prospect say this. Time, I'm busy. Now it's not a good time, maybe in the future. Okay? So, these are my 3 favorite ways to logically overcome this. And I feel like I've become relatively adept at these things because I am skeptical and I try and avoid everything. And so I have to have these arguments with myself to get myself to do shit. All right, so I sell myself all the time on doing shit because I don't want to do it. That's why I share these things. So when I think through this, I just determine is the time thing that they're bringing up, is it macro? Like this is a busy season, I'm really busy right now. Is it micro? I literally don't have the hours in the day. Or is it when then, which is once I have time, I will do it. Once I have a 6-pack, I'll start your program. Once I'm healthy, I'll go to the hospital. Once I have money, then I'll invest. Stupid. Doesn't make sense. That's why it's a logical fallacy. All right, so let's break down macro, seasonal. So again, the big thing here is you'll notice that these aren't scripts. These are just like the mental frames that you approach this with. So all you have to remember is the first line. So for me, it's like, oh, so you're super busy right now? You're like, yeah. You're like, well, busy is the best time. Because if you start when you're not busy, then as soon as you get busy, you'll fall off. So wouldn't you want to start when you're busy? Because that's when you need the most support, right? So let's start now when you're busiest, because you know if you can succeed now, you'll succeed forever. Because you want to lose this weight for good, right? You want to be successful in business for good, right? Right? It's not an argument. Does that make sense? Think you can use that one? All right. Micro, hour by hour. This is a big one that comes up. So whenever someone like is obviously wrong, right? When they're like, I don't have time, you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't have time. Okay. You can't be like, yes you do, because now you're arguing. And you're like, instead, make yourself the idiot. They're like, Dorothy, I totally understand how you feel. I used to say the same thing. And I was actually complaining to my wife about this the other day, about why our business isn't successful. And I was like, I just don't have time to do all these new things and all these programs and learn all this stuff. And she just was so sick and tired of me complaining. She grabbed my phone out of my hand, went to the time distribution, and then showed it to me and was like, there's 26 hours on social media. Found your time. Do you think you might have some time that we could find? Because at the end of the day, right now, you're working really hard at this goal, right? Whatever it is. They're going to probably say yes. And you're like, okay, well, here's the crazy thing. The people who are really successful also have the same amount of time as you, and they might also be working all day. But what you're currently doing is obviously not working. So you're not going to do any more of that. The first step we're going to do is take 90% of the shit you're doing and stop doing it. And then replace it with stuff that works. So you know ahead of time. Make sense? Great. It's actually less time. You spend way less time wasting time on stuff that doesn't work. You guys are digging this? Does this make sense?
Yes.
If you get the idea, the argument, one is step into their shoes, give them a story where you were the doofus. Be like, that's how it was for me. And then they can connect the dot and be like, oh, that's me. Right? But you're not saying they're an idiot. You're saying, I'm an idiot. But I said the same thing you did. Right? It's a little bit different. Right? At the end of the day, then you can point to the more logical of, listen, you've been spending a long time every day trying to do this stuff. Right now, you're trying to grow your business. Who here works all the time? Awesome. I love you guys. You work all the time. If you're not making as much money as you want, you're doing the wrong shit. That's it. So, it won't cost you any extra time. Because we're going to get rid of all the shit that you're currently doing that's not working. Same idea with fitness, all right? 3, when then fallacy. So this is where, once I have the time, I'll do it. So this totally kept me stuck for years, right? And I actually found out from a friend that this line of reasoning is called a when then fallacy. It's when I have more time, when I have more money, I will X, right? But you don't start fitness once you're healthy. Just like you don't go to the hospital once you're healed. You give that line, people get it, and they're like, I guess that is ridiculous. Then you move forward. And you peel back the onion. Make sense? Boop. So we peel back one layer of the onion. But then they're like, you know what? Maybe I do have time, but I don't have money. All right, Dorothy, let's go. So raise your hand if you've ever thought or had a prospect say, I don't have the money, I can't afford this is not in my budget. Okay. This is for you. So there's a zillion money closes. I will give you the 4 that I like and use the most. So number 1 is why a lot is good. This is cool. I like this a lot. I close a lot of sales with this. And this particularly works with people who I think actually make some of the best testimonials. And so, does anyone here have a client who gave their last dollar to start working with you? Yes? How fucking dedicated are those clients? Right. The fact that this is a lot of money for you means you're going to care more about it than anyone else, which is why you are the person I'm last worried about, or least worried about, being successful. So if anything, you have a higher likelihood of success than somebody who this is a rounding error for them. This is going to mean something to you. Right? Yes. Then it means it's a good thing that it's a lot. Great, we just took their obstacle and made it a benefit. Woo. So this is what it looks like. Exact way to be successful means a lot like you. Here's a line in the sand. Another one I like using is, would you even believe it if it did what I said it does and it was 1/10 of the price? Would you believe me? And they'll be like, well, no. I'm like, right. Then what you need is going to cost this either way. Are you going to do it sooner or are you going to do it later? Well, you might as well do it sooner. Because no matter what, this is what you need to get to where you're trying to go. Right? And if you're in a B2B scenario, you'd say, well, this one is a real gut punch. How long do you want I can't afford it to be along the line? Sorry. Here's me fucking it up. How long do you want I can't afford it to be one of your problems in life? Because like you're going to keep saying it until you solve it. And so if you're saying, I can't afford the thing that's going to help you not say that again, how long are you going to keep struggling? Probably a while. That's why the fact that it's a lot is a good thing. The second is why it's actually not a lot when you think about it. So this is where you frame the value. All right? It's kind of like value anchoring rather than price anchoring. It works the same way. So you're like, hey, if all this did was get you into a bikini body, would it be worth it? If all this did was get you back to your high school weight, would it be worth it? I mean, you spend $1,000 on your outfit, right? Your Louis bag and your shoes and whatever. I was like, well, what do you think would look better? That bag and those shoes? Or the way you looked on your wedding day? Right? And so it's framing the value. You bought those Louis shoes or those bags. How many times have you worn those shoes? I don't know, 10 times? How many times do you wear your body? Value. Don't you think you spend more on that than the purse that you wear once in a while? So the idea here is we're just trying to frame value. And the thing is especially when it comes to health and fitness, and honestly investing in like making yourself better, any kind of self-education, like framing what this is going to do for the rest of their lives pretty much is always worth it. By a margin, by a wide mile. And so if for some reason they say no, there's basically no time when they'll say no to this, right? So then the next follow-up question here is this, well, then if this thing's gonna make you $10,000 a month, if this thing's gonna get you to your wedding weight or your high school weight or pick whatever thing, then it's not that it's not worth it, it's that you don't believe it's gonna happen for you. So let's talk about that. And then you sidestep the money issue because you solved it. Now it's a belief thing. Now we're talking to the person in charge. Does that make sense? So we just want to break these frames so we can talk to the person. Like this is just having real conversations with people, all right? And so obviously you can compare something to a degree or a franchise or whatever if you want to price anchor. These are just examples. But the big thing here is I don't want you to learn the words, I want you to learn the ideas, right? Why the fact that it's a lot of money for you is a good thing is you're going to give a shit. Great, if you give a shit, you're way more likely to be successful. Sign up. The fact that it's a lot of money for you right now is because you're not thinking about the value, which is that if you were your wedding weight right now, would it be worth it for you in 12 months? Fuck yeah. Okay, so it's not about the money. You don't think you can get there. Let's talk about that. Right? You're sidestepping. I like this a lot. What's money good for anyways? All right? Because the thing is that you're probably going to spend this money, Dorothy, in the next 12 months, no matter what. The question is where you're going to spend it on shit that's not going to move you forward towards your goal, or you're going to spend it on something that is. Because let me promise you something. You're going to buy this program either way. The question is how you want to pay. You want to pay with your time, you want to pay with your money. If I'm not mistaken, you've been paying with your time in the last 6 years. I think it's time to start paying with your money. You're going to learn these lessons either way. I believe that you're going to lose the weight, Dorothy. I believe it. It's just you want it to take a decade. If you do, that's cool. I respect that. Some people value their time more than they value their money. And those people use the money to save their time. Does that make sense? Do you think you could use that? Like, especially seeing the fact that you're going to buy the program either way. You're going to buy what I'm going to teach you either way. You're just going to choose to pay with your time. You can choose to pay with your money. You choose to pay with your time, you're going to keep paying. And I don't know what percentage you paid off on this debt. Because right now you're 6 years in. You might be 6 years out of 30. So you might have a long time to pay this off. But you might be able to pay with your money today and have this thing knocked in 3 months. Would that be worth it? Okay. Because the thing is when you make the purchase inevitable, then all of a sudden it's just determining how they want to pay. Different frame. And so at the end of the day, you're like, all right, well, what's money good for anyways, right? Other than helping us move towards our goals. And at the end of the day, this is, I mean, when we talk about like percentage of deals closed with a single close, the best case, worst case close, which is that bottom one, I've closed a lot of deals with that single line, which is, listen, best case, worst case. Best case, you get the body of your dreams. Worst case, you work out for 3 months and you learn how to have the body of your dreams after that, right? Both of these options are risk-free. And if you want to counter, because you can use that in a number of ways depending on how the conversation went before that. You can frame it as they walk out the door or they buy, or you can have it different scenarios if they buy. But if you say you walk out the door, say, listen, you walk out the door or you buy. Both of them are risk-free, but only one of them is guaranteed to not get what you want, which is when you walk out the door. So, I can't guarantee that you're going to get it, but I can guarantee that if you walk out, you won't. So you at least want to take a chance at getting what you want? It's just framing the negative. Does that make sense? Close a lot of deals with that. Just play the opposite card. Totally understand. both of these are risk-free. One of these is guaranteed, though, to not get you where you want, which is you walking out this door, you're hanging up the phone, you're thinking about it, you're not making a decision, right? Why you don't need money? So the thing is, and this is like probably the heaviest hitting, is that they think they need resources. What they really need is resourcefulness. And so let me tell you a quick story. Anyone heard of Nike, Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, right? Okay. He's the founder, that's his book, Nike's his company. There we go, there's the short story. There's a story in the book where he had maxed out all his credit cards, maxed out all his liens, couldn't raise any more money, and he had to pay payroll. And at this point, his employees were already working for free because they believed in the mission, they believed in the company. But they couldn't because he needed to pay landlord and they were about to put padlocks on his door. So he had already gotten his employees to work for free because they believed so much. But the landlord didn't give a shit. And so he went to his vendors, the people he bought shit from. So the guys on Upwork, the VAs that you guys work with, or whoever you contract to do shit for you, and then just said, hey, I need you to pay my lease. Because if you don't pay my lease, then I won't be able to pay you anymore. And he got them to pay his lease. And he was able to keep the doors open. And so the thing that he didn't lack was resourcefulness. He had no resources, but he had resourcefulness. And the thing is what separates self-made billionaires and millionaires from people who start at zero? Not resources, because they're all at zero. It's resourcefulness. And so you don't need the money. You need the ability to get the money. There's a difference. And so let me prove something to you. Who here has ever had a bill come up that was unexpected? Tax season's upon us, right? I know. So, who here, upon getting this bill, then magically pulled money out of their ass and found a way to make the money? Here's what's fucked up. Y'all will do that for other people, but not for yourselves. You'll do it for the tax man, you do it for your landlord, you do it for payroll, but you won't do it for you. Which means you know how to do it, you just choose not to do it. So then the real question is why? And so the thing is that you need resourcefulness, not resources. Does that make sense? Okay. Peeling back the onion. Feel like we knocked time out? Do you feel like we knocked out the value? Can't afford it? All right. This one's if there's ever one that you should never fail on, it's fit. When someone's like, I'm not sure this is a fit for me. I'm not sure I want to post content. I'm not sure I want to do sales calls like that. I'm not sure I want to do DMs. I'm not sure I want to do challenges. I'm not sure I want to eat broccoli. I'm not sure I like doing cardio. Okay, Susan, how's not doing cardio working for you? So, raise your hand if you've ever thought or had prospects say one of these things. Something specific about this program is not a fit for me. Cool, here's how you rock it. So, this is one of my favorite fucking closes. It came out of nowhere. I was in the sales conversation, I said it, and I was like, ooh, that was good. So, this lady was saying she didn't want to budget money, blah, 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 whatever. And she's like, I don't want to do these things, right? I was like, okay. You know, it reminds me a lot of this conversation that I saw happen in front of me. So I went with Layla to Sephora, which is a makeup store. And so we're in the store, right? And I'm standing like this. And I fit right in. And Layla's doing whatever she's doing. And I see these two little girls, yay-ish high in girl age. Really excited about it. And they're going up, and some girl with a smock is holding lots of pencils and paint in her hands. And it's arts and crafts day for faces. So anyways, so she's holding these things. And she says to the little girl, she's like, okay, now that you guys are women, she's like, you're gonna have to start budgeting for this stuff. Every month you're gonna start buying eyeliner and lipstick and blush. I'm using words. Okay, that's it. You're gonna have to start budgeting for this stuff because you're women now. And I saw it happen. The girls were they grabbed at her and they're so eager. They're like, yeah. And the thing is with new identities come new priorities. And so right now you're speaking out of the priorities that you had with your old self, but you just told me that you don't want to be that person anymore. So I want to make sure that I heard you right. Do you want to leave this identity behind, the one that's been causing you all this pain, step into this new identity? They'll say yes. You're like, with a new identity comes new priorities. Because I promise, someone poorer than you has made this work. So it just matters how much you want it. Thanks. Next one is pain of change, right? This is funny. So I had this lady who was like, I was making a meal plan, and she's like, hey, can we change the breakfast to like this and this? And I was like, she's like, because that's what I eat now. And I was like, I know. I was like, that breakfast has gotten you that body. That way you spend the first 4 hours of your day is why you have that bank account. Right? You gotta change, right? And the real is that, and you've heard this from Tony Robbins, but like you're gonna keep staying the same until the pain of change is greater. Sorry, the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. Right? And sometimes I would just ask women, or I'd ask guys who are, in these conversations with me, I'm like, dude, maybe you just need to be in the negative. Like you have no money, maybe you need to go bankrupt to make this like real for you. Like, girl, maybe you need to gain 50 more pounds. Then come back when it hurts more. I'm dead set. I would absolutely say this. Thing is, it depends how you say it. If you have a dick rapport up to this point, you're probably just gonna get a dick no clothes, right? But if you're like, Dorothy, like, are you in enough pain? I mean, you're in enough pain to get in your car, block this time, come here. I was like, do you need someone to talk to? I was like, do you actually want to change this? I was like, because it's gonna hurt. I was like, but you just told me all these things that currently hurt. So it's just which one hurts more for you? Because then I'd have somebody say like, well, what if I don't like the workouts? Anyone had that one? What if I don't like the meal plan? It's like, well, I promise you're not gonna be eating ice cream all day, running on the beach with the wind in your hair. But I promise you it's gonna be exactly what you need to get to where you wanna go. And so sometimes just having those damaging admissions of like, listen, it's not gonna be easy. I promise you that. I promise you that. I was like, but it's gonna be easier than the current thing that you wake up with every day. That I can promise you. And if they still fight you, then it's like, oh, maybe you just need to gain more weight. People get weird, they're like, fuck. You're like, yeah. They're like, well, I don't want that. And it's like, well, that's what's gonna happen if you walk out. How do I know? Because that's what has happened the last 5 years. You just told me. Pain of change. Hypothetical. So this is a great, I'm trying to come up with this framework because like the next book I have is on sales. Leads is already done, by the way. Yeah. I spent 2,000 hours, I clocked the time. I spent 2,000 hours in the book. So it's 280 pages. So it's 120 pages longer than offers. It's a beast, but it's good. It'll make you a lot of money. Okay. So in the next book, which I have, will be sales. I'm trying to come up with this like universal closing framework, which is hypothetical. So you isolate the problem, you hypothesize about the problem not existing, and then you ask for agreement. Okay, so whatever it is. So it's like, I don't want to eat broccoli in this program. And you're like, okay, what if broccoli didn't exist? Would you do it then? If you get yes, then you just change it. Whatever, if it's minor, you just change it. I can't work out, I swear to God. I had so many people who were like, well, I can't work out on Mondays. I'm like, can you work out on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, seriously? We spent 20 minutes to get to this point? You'd be amazed. People think really linear. Another way of wording this is, if it were perfect, would you do it? And if the person says no, then you're like, whoa, let's take 10 steps back. Do you hate me? I mean, you must, right? But it's like, if you wouldn't do the perfect program, what are we talking about? And if they're like, well, yes, then you're like, then what's the difference between perfect and this? And now you actually get them to say to you what they want different. And you're like, this is actually here. This is actually here. And you know what? I actually think that too. But when we did that first, it didn't work because of this. Oh, you know why? Because you have more context on this. You've had this conversation more times than them. You've thought about your offer and the services you have way more than they have. They've had like 2 conversations like this their whole lives. You have like 5 a day. We should be better at this conversation than them. That make sense? Like they're coming into a knife fight, like tied up, like, you know, like you should be more prepared. All right? Okay. Cool. So, we're peeling back the onion. Jason, I'm definitely going to go over. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. You guys feel like you can use some of these to make more money? Yeah. Cool. Okay, next one's authority. All right, so we covered all the surface level shit, all the circumstantial stuff that they come up with. All right, now we gotta talk to the real stuff. And authority is one of the hardest ones to overcome. Because you're literally talking to someone saying, I have no power. It's like, fuck, how do I get you to decide? And so I'll talk to you, there's not many that you can use, but I'll share the 3-step that I've used most successfully overcoming this, okay? So that's, I have to talk to my business partner, spouse, friend, monkeys, kids, pets, employees. Okay. So, one is isolate and collapse the foil, which is fancy words for just saying, hey, if your husband wouldn't like this thing, what do you think he wouldn't like about it? Then what happens is they tell you what because the husband has no fucking idea. She's not there. She will tell you what she doesn't like about it, but is too coward to tell you directly, because people don't like confrontation. So it's like, what do you think they would disagree with about this? What do you think they would not think is good about it? Why do you think they would think poorly about you for buying this thing? You should ask their hypothetical husband, who's not in the room, what that person thinks. And what happens is, if they give you a real answer, you don't have to deal with it anymore. You just solve the problem and you move forward. It's like it never happened. Does that make sense? Really works well. Now, as an aside, whenever possible, during your nurture process, if you have sales calls, ask the spouse to be on the phone for 2 reasons. One, so you can avoid this. Secondly, because if you really want to help people, having a supportive environment makes it 4 or 5 times more likely to be successful. So if you really, really want to help them, just get the spouse on the phone. And you won't have to get into the jet, I'm going to show you in a second. All right, but the reality is that weight loss sales tend to be very pain-driven, very impulse-driven, emotional sales, and you've got one window. Who here's still waiting for Lisa to call you back? Right? Right. I have the credit card I want to use isn't on me. Right? I'm still waiting for it. So when you isolate and collapse the foil, what part do you think they wouldn't approve of? Isolate it and confront the real issue. Okay? Boom. Now, 2 and 3 are paired together. This is like, if I have to overcome it, this is how I do it. The first thing I say is, do they approve of your current struggle? And they're going to say, well, no. You say, well, then why would they disapprove of you solving that thing? And before you let them answer, you just roll right into the next question, which is like, hey, if they were here and you were out there and they were struggling the same way you are, would you oppose them doing this? Because if it were me and my wife, I wouldn't want to stop her from doing anything that's going to help her get the dreams that she wants. And at the end of the day, none of us have ever, if you spend this money, do you think you'll go homeless? Probably not, right? I actually had, I had a lady who was doing Dave Ramsey's budgeting thing, and she was like, I have to take this cash from our grocery money. And I was like, well, worst case scenario, you can't buy groceries and you lose weight. She cracked up and she did buy. Swear to God. And so I'll transition the tone back, but hey, if the roles were reversed, would you let your husband do this thing? Of course. Okay, so what I think I'm hearing is that you're asking for permission when you really want support. Because let's play this out 5 years. If every time you come to this point in the decision-making process, what if he says no? Let's just play it out. What if he says no? What if the next 5 things he keeps saying no? What happens? Well, at some point you're going to start resenting him, right? Do you feel like that's fair to you? Do you feel like that's fair to him? Do you feel like that's fair to your marriage? No. Okay. So do you think we maybe are looking for the wrong thing? Say, hey honey, I did this thing, it's for me, I just asked you for your support. I'll make cuts in my life in this way to make sure that it makes sense for us. You think that would sound fair? A lot of times you get the yes. And if it doesn't work, you can say, hey, worst case scenario, I've got a 3-day, no sweat guarantee, sign up. And if for some reason, between now and 3 days from now, you go home, you tell your husband, hey, I decided to get the body of my dreams and really work on myself. And he says, sweetie, tear that thing up. I want you to sit on the couch, open a bag of Cheetos, put those sweatpants on, girl. Just reach into that bag, just stuff your face. And I was like, and I want you to just rub those Cheetos fingers on your thighs, those thunder thighs. And I want you to be a negative example to our kids. I want you to have generational unhealth. I want all of our kids and their progeny to live 10, 15, 20 years less long. He says that to you. you go home and your wife says, you know what, I want you to keep watching Netflix. I don't want you to pursue your dreams. I don't want you to invest in yourself. I want all of our kids to not see what it looks like to have someone actually chase after something meaningful. Right? Same thing, just replace wealth with health. I want all of our kids to continue this cycle of poverty. Anyways, here's our 3-day no sweat guarantee. Put your card down. If he does that, then one, I'll absolutely tear it up. And two, I want to have a conversation because I got to beat this guy. And they usually crack up and they're like, of course he's not going to do that. I'm like, bro, let's just sign up. Let's get going. I know you're just scared, and that makes you like everyone else who signs up and succeeds. Right? You associate their fear with the identity of someone who's successful. That one's really good. That works a lot, by the way. Okay. Boom. We have the authority. So, we overcame time. We overcame value. We overcame fit. We overcame authority. Now we are finally talking to an individual, a motherfucker, who's making decisions about themselves. Woo! All right. But they need to think about it. Now, it's important. Note that we've exhausted all other ideas. We're talking to a person in power. This is good, okay? So if you have someone who says, I need to think about it, be pumped. Be like, I got one thing left to do, just help you decide. That's it. I don't have to talk to your husband. I don't have to talk to your dog. I don't have to talk to your kids. I don't have to deal with your schedule. I don't have to deal with the season. I don't have to do the fact you don't like you just need to think about it. Let's think about it together. Raise your hand if you know somebody who's like this. I'm a motherfucker. This is one that I do all the time. Let me think about it. So, these are the frames that I use. Past, present, future. Easy to remember. Past. A lot of people feel like this is a fast decision, right? They're going to say, yeah. It's like, the thing is, I don't think this is a fast decision. How long have you been trying to lose weight? 6 years. I was like, well, then you've made this decision 6 years ago. You've been making this decision every day. Now we're just taking action on that decision. So it's not fast at all. Huh. I guess I have been thinking about it a long time. Great, let's take action now. That make sense? That one can just pop. Boom, close the deal. Another one, this one zings. Say, hey, do you think the fact that you're struggling to decide about this is the reason you're here to begin with? The fact that you've consistently struggled to pull the trigger on programs, help, whatever it is. Do you think the fact that you've not been able to pull the trigger is why you're here today? Maybe he's right. And the question is really just like, are you tired of another year of almost getting in shape, of almost looking good enough to take the bikini, the coverall, that's what the word is, right? Coverall. Gotta take the big towel the girls wear over a bikini. Take that thing off, right? I was like, you tired of another year of almost making enough money, of almost being able to retire your spouse, of almost moving to the better neighborhood? Tired of that? Maybe you just need to be in more pain. Come back next year. This is a big one. So I separated this out because this one happens a lot in any kind of self-help stuff, okay? Don't let a bad decision burn you twice. So this is a lady, as you can see, April, who messaged me recently and said, I'll read the thing to you. Said, it's crazy to think that I had a sales call with you 6 years ago. It was 7, because it's a year ago that I did this. And I'm kicking myself in the butt for not joining your program. This is for gym launch, right? And this is obviously post-sale for us. And I remember this sales call because she had said, I just paid this other guy all this money and nothing happened. And I was like, I feel for you, girl. I was like, the only thing worse than letting that guy burn you once is letting him burn you twice by preventing you from making the right decision there. So like you did that thing, you did 24-hour fitness, you did the whatever, insert weight loss program, whatever. You did it before. If you don't do this now, you're letting that guy burn you twice. You want to let him burn you twice? No. So then don't let that bad decision make this bad decision. Think you can use that one? Cool. That's how you help them with their past. Then you get into the present. I need to think about it. Fantastic. Well, when you really think about it, you're not gonna like go home, drive to your place, have this front yard, southern patio, of course you live in a condo, whatever, and you're on your rocking chair and you're like, am I going to do this program? You're not sitting there wondering about life, right? Because the fallacy is that we think we need more time when really we just need more information. And I'm the only source of information you got. So what questions do you have? Because when you play that out, what's going to happen is you're not going to do that. You're going to leave here, you're going to check your phone, you're going to have 6 texts, you're going to have to pick up the kids, you're going to do the dry cleaning, you got to go get groceries and all this stuff. And 5 days from now, you're going to put your jeans on and be like, fuck, these are tight again. And then you'll be like, shit, I should have done that thing. Oh well, just made the decision in that moment. You let life make it rather than you. So, let's make the decision together. What are you going to use to make the decision? Ask them. Because no one has decision-making criteria. I'll just tell you what's going to happen next. No one thinks about how they make decisions. It's like, well, do you want me to help you? Because I'll give you the framework that a lot of our clients that are most successful use. Can I give it to you? Yes. Do you think this is more likely, notice the language, this is more likely to help you get to where you want to go? Yes. Do you like me? Yes or no? Do you trust that I'm going to be here tomorrow? That I'm not a deep fake from, Nigeria. No hate on Nigeria. That's trying to take your money. No. Let's do it. That's it. Just help them make the decision. These are the variables. Do you think it's going to get you closer? Do you like me? Do you think I'm going to run away? Okay, cool. If you have any kind of guarantee, it opens the door for the third arrow there, which is, listen, I want you to make an informed decision. You want to make an informed decision, right? Yeah, I'll make an informed decision. Like, okay, cool. I just baited you. Fantastic. So, you can only make an informed decision on the inside, once you've actually experienced the thing. And so if you want to make an informed decision, sign up, let me help you, and if for whatever reason you think I suck, tell me, and 1, I'll try and make it up to you, and 2, I'll give your money back. Fair enough? You said you want to make an informed decision. It's the only way to make an informed decision. Everything else is just conjecture. That closes a lot of sales, if you have a guarantee. And one I like using is the definition of decision making. So it comes from Latin decadere, which just means to kill off or cut off. And so the question you say is like, listen, a decision is really just cutting off one path for another. So which future are we cutting off? The future that's healthy you, the future that's unhealthy you. I'm cool with whatever one you're cool with. But what are we going to decide? Because it just means we got to pick one. Fuck. All right. That's the present. And then finally we have the future. The future sucks. So 5 years in the future, what does it look like if you keep going this way? It's called negative visualization. Totally get it. If you decide not to do this, I feel you. Let's play this out 5 years. What do you look like? What's life like? How much have you gained in the last 5? 30. Okay. What do you weigh now? 200? Cool. You step on the scale, it's 230. How do you feel? Okay. How much money have you saved up in the last 5 years? 10 grand. Okay. 5 more years. You keep working every other day. What do you have saved up? 20 grand. How do you feel? Same thing. Just play it out. And so this one's the let's consider the options, right? I went over this briefly earlier, but it's like, let's consider the options. Both of these are risk-free. This is where if you have a guarantee, this becomes really useful. You say like, risk-free is you buy it, risk-free is you walk out the door, right? I'm repeating this because I used it a lot. You walk out the door. That way is guaranteed to not get you what you want. This way, you at least got a shot, but both are risk-free. And so then it feels like, oh, this is an all upside move, right? Does that make sense? You think you can use that one? It's really good. Okay. And this one I like a lot, which is like, well, you're not going to struggle forever, right? Yeah, because again, they're avoiding the decision. Remember, I need to think about it. It's like, well, you're not going to struggle forever, right? Well, no. All right, well, if you're going to do it eventually, you might as well do it now. Oh, okay. And this one I really like a lot, which is the fourth arrow there, which is, I feel like you're putting a lot of pressure on this decision. Is that right? Okay. Because it sounds like you're trying to find the perfect fit, the perfect program. Is that fair to say that? Yeah. Well, I think that's a lot of pressure. Because you have to look at every single program under the sun. You think you have time to do that? No. Because probably the amount of time it takes you to do that, you're probably already in shape, right? So let me give you a different framework. Instead of saying, is this the perfect plan for me? Just say, do you think this will get further or closer to your goal? Closer. Great. Then let's do it. And along the way you'll learn the things you like, the things you don't, and we'll optimize for that. And so it takes the pressure off this decision being perfect, because a lot of people who are new into anything, whether it's business, whether it's fitness, whatever, they're afraid of making a mistake. And so what you do is you decrease the stakes of the decision. Say like, you're not going to get it perfect the first time. And you know what? You might find out, I'm a CrossFit gym or whatever, that you actually like Zumba. Cool. But I will promise you that just getting fit and in shape in general will still get you closer to getting into Zuma than walking out the door. But you don't know until you start. Avoidance. Boom. Woo! Feel good? Okay. So it's just you. It's just them. You're just talking to somebody who's in power, who doesn't have circumstances they're blaming their shit on, who doesn't have other people they're blaming the shit on, who's not avoiding the decision, who chooses to take action now. Because they, rather than life, want to make decisions. Alright? In bonus reason number 6, which is called the reason close, where I saved it, which is the reason you are telling yourself is the precise reason you need to. So when someone says, I don't have the money to do this thing, it's like, that's the exact reason why you should do this thing. I don't have the time to do this thing, that's the exact reason why you should do this thing. Doesn't matter what they say. I don't have to support my husband, that's the fucking perfect reason to get in shit. Whatever reason they have is often one of the most important reasons that they should do it. Because what that exposes, because it's completely circular logic, is that it doesn't exist to begin with. I don't have money, that's why I can't do it. That's why you should do it. You don't have money. Right? This making sense? This one? It's also really easy to remember when you're like under stress of sales. Whatever they say, you're like, that's actually the reason you should do it. They're like, wait. Been in a lot of sales. Sometimes it's just good to have a couple back pocket ones. Call that a stall close. What the fuck was I saying, close? So hopefully this helps you realize you and your clients are always in complete power. All right? Circumstances, time, money, fit. Others, spouse, self, avoid decision, and what they really translate into. Circumstances really are about resourcefulness, not resources. Other people is about support, not permission. And when it comes down to self or avoidance, it's not about time, it's about information. And if you've got the information, you just need to decide. And like I promised at the beginning, my hope is to become more powerful by making a decision rather than letting life make it for you. So here's a few final thoughts. Fortunes are created by taking lots of risk with little money. Fortunes are maintained by taking little risk with lots of money. In the beginning, everything's a massive risk because you have no money. And I get it, because I've been there. And if everything that I've ever made in my life, the result has been investing in my own education. It's got to be higher returns than any stock, real estate, crypto, or anything else. That is a promise. And all investments in myself were skills, beliefs, and traits that got me closer to wherever I wanted to go. Even if that brick wasn't the last brick. It was a brick on the bridge that would get me to where I wanted to go. And so it's why I've dedicated my life to education at acquisition.com. We want to make real business education accessible to everyone. Because when you realize that you are the source, you realize that Superman isn't coming. It's just you. And every decision is a vote towards or against the person that you want to be. And so the question is, are the decisions that you're voting towards the person you want to become? Or is it just more of the same? And so people ask me all the time, like, how did you move so quickly? And the answer is, I know how to buy time. And the follow-up question is, how do you buy time? By buying the time other people took to make mistakes that taught them lessons, and then buying those lessons from them. Ignorance is the most expensive debt that we all pay. It's what we should know but don't, to get what we want. And so I heard this from, I can't remember who I heard this from. He's like, so, it's all good. Right now, $1 million a year. Who's making $1 million in personal income? Actually, don't raise your hand because it'd be a weird flex. So, for everyone not making $1 million a year, and if you're making $1 million, add a 0. If you're making 10, add a 0, make it 100. Whatever the number is, okay? Now subtract how much money you actually made last year from that number. Whatever that leftover number is. Is it how much it costs you every year in ignorance to not know how to make $1 million? So if you made $50,000 last year, it costs you $950,000 this year to not know how to make $1 million. And so you think that your car payment and your lease is the biggest expense you're paying. You're paying life $10 million a month, not know how to make $100 million a year. It's the biggest debt you're paying. It's not knowing how. And so ignorance of not knowing how to create the income you want costs you that amount of income. Therefore, at least my argument, is that you should always be willing to invest money to increase your capacity for making income. Because once you have it, this is key, it pays you forever. It grows tax-free, it can't be stolen, no government can take it from you, no divorce can take it from you. It appreciates with time, and when combined with other skills, they multiply. It's the best investment out there. But people don't think about it like an investment. And so 10 years ago, I had my little do or die decision. Some of you guys may recognize Sam Baxiar, rest in peace. I actually drove across the country to Sam's gym to say I wanted to get into fitness. And he was like, bro, you've been really wishy-washy. Mind you, I just fucking drove across the country. It's still sad. And he was like, you've been saying you want to do this, not do this. And I called him a couple times, like, can you just take these calls for free because you like me, whatever. And so I showed up on his front doorstep like a maniac. Don't do this to me. You will get stopped by security. And he said, bro, I think you just need to commit, man. He's like, you just need to draw a line in the sand. And up to this point, I'd done all the, I drove, I left there, but like when he was like, you have to pay to be in my little group. I was like, fuck. He's like, you need to commit, bro. He's like, you need to commit for you. He's like, I don't need it. He's like, but you've been back and forth. I've talked to you 6 times. He's like, you need to draw a line in the sand, you need to step over it. And it was the best decision I ever made. It got me into a whole new world. I learned what sales was. I didn't know the term, like legit. He was like, this is affiliate marketing. I was like, what the fuck is this? He's like, I have an email list. I was like, what's that? And I learned all these things just by entering that world of other people. I had all these other gym owners around me. I didn't even have a gym. I joined a gym mastermind without a gym. And he was like, yeah, you'll learn. And learn I did. And I learned really quick because I actually got to not make all the mistakes that they made when they opened their gym. I was like, what would you do if you want to do it again? They're like, I would have done this. I was like, what would you do if you would do it? Like, oh, I would have done this. I was like, who makes the most money here? They're like, that guy. I was like, what would you do? He's like, forget all that shit. And I was like, okay. First rule of poverty, listen to poor people about how to get rich. So here's my 2 cents. Make decisions out yourself, implement like crazy, take ownership, realize that there are no silver bullets, but some things can move you closer to your goals, and when those rare acceleration opportunities come in life, take them. You either win or you learn, and both of those get you closer to wherever it is you want to go. Thank you.